Hi, I'm Dennis from Zynaptiq, and we're showing our new plugin, Wormhole, here at the NAMM show in Anaheim, California. What does it do? Well, pretty much what the name implies. It's a multi-effects processor that specializes in creating really far out sound transformations at a super high quality level, easily and quickly, like with all of our products. And on top of the sci-fi stuff, it also does more bread and butter music production, sweetening, pitch shifting, reverby thingies really well. Let me show you what it does. So here's some speech. It's really great for monster voices, zombies, robots, evil president-elects, and that sort of stuff. Here's some speech.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart.
And I can do this.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days,
The Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor The Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart.
Yeah, but it doesn't only do the monster voices, it does the spaceship background atmosphere thing really well too. There's actually even presets that are called interesting things like anything to dark rumbly drone. Let's see what it makes out of that speech. As a reminder, here's the input signal.
As, in an interval of 3 days,
Let's see what it does to that. That is a dark rumbly drone for sure. How does cybernetics planned on series sound? Now that is a big bad ambience. Using our dry wet morphing over here, we can give that sound contour again and make it resemble the source.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days.
So there's a lot of nice atmospheric sounds to be had with that. Let me expand on the dry wet morphing a little. You're probably familiar with every plugin's dry wet mix. We went like, yeah, maybe there's something we can do to make that more useful and more awesome. Because if you take a sound and you twist it really beyond recognition, if you do a dry wet mix, typically it comes out sounding like 2 different sounds playing at the same time. Now that may be what you want, but most of the time, for example, in games and film where you make monster voices, that breaks the illusion. But you may still be wanting to dial it back a little. That's why we went, hey man, maybe we want to morph between the source and the processed version. Let me give you a little bit of a pitch shifted voice as an example.
as, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson
And now I can really fine-tune the amount of that coloring using the morphing.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of...
Or I can use the other morphing algorithm for a more obvious transition.
As, in an interval of 3 days,
The Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days,
So yeah, using this approach, you can really fuse the source and the processed version to be one sound. So it makes it easier to mix as well because the effect will be kind of wrapped into the silhouette of the source, you know, adapting to its envelope and its spectral fingerprint. Very cool feature. Now, with all the monsters and demons and spaceships going on, it's let me highlight, it works really well for music too. So here's a little guitar. And now instead of switching on your 1980s outboard effect that you need to service every 2 weeks and the parts are no longer available and it's all that sort of stuff, you can go ahead and use this. It sounds really, really beautiful. Go ahead. Let me bring up one of my favorite presets, Valentine Guitar Blur. It references, for those who know, a band called My Bloody Valentine, most awesome guitar band ever. And it sounds like this. Super sustained and textural. And again, with the dry wet morph, I can really go from the original and have that evolve into the effect. Have the harmonics come in. And since we went to pitch shifter land, we thought maybe we want to have the subtle left-right detuning microshift thing going on as well. I use that a lot. You probably do too. Good news is this guy loves doing that. Not so subtle. So after showing you what it sounds like, which is, I hope, to your liking, I am sure actually about that bit, let me go into some tech details. So what is this thing all about? So on the left side, we have the warping section, which is a spectral inversion, rotating kind of warping thing. I would love to explain to you how it works, but I don't know because my engineer is not telling me, because it's apparently so simple that everybody would just like replicate it real quick. The thing about it is it does spectral processing without being an FFT-based processor. FFT processors can do cool stuff, but quite often on paper the idea sounds better than the result, because FFTs are very limited in terms of time frequency resolution. They smear out all over the place if you're not careful, and they start warbling, and you know, you can do it well, but it's tricky. This one uses just time domain stuff. Then on the right side lives our combined pitch and frequency shifter. Now it's not just another pitch shifter, because we wouldn't be Zynaptiq if that were the case. So to give you a little bit of history and background, pitch shifters so far have been done in one of two general ways. There's the time domain one, which is basically delays or granulators and sample rate conversions and overlap stuff. That can be really good for some stuff, but because you don't really know where the overlaps are, it's not so good for stuff that has transients. They'll flam all over the place. And it's also not so good for chords and rich stuff, because you're doing a straight cut in time, but the phase of all the frequencies is different, so you'll get, you know, combing effects at the boundaries. The other approach is to use a resynthesizer and an FFT. That can work really well for some sorts of sounds, but again, it runs into limitations at some point. Now, our design uses hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of frequency shifters, each of which picks out a relevant harmonic in the source, and then we shift all of them separately by different amounts to emulate the pitch shifter using frequency shifters. As a result, it's really smooth sounding, very coherent. It doesn't have windows or that sort of stuff going on. And to use buzzwords that I typically try to avoid, is really warm and analog sounding, man. Like we put a tube in there. It has smooth, tight, and detune modes. Then there's a dual reverb. That one is actually the all-pass reverb we use in Morph, as well as an adaptive verb. is one of the Lego blocks in this. There's two of them in here. I'll get into why there's two in a bit. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the dry-wet morph, which is like a dry-wet mix on steroids. It's actually the algorithm from a Morph plugin, the classic algorithm, except the difference being you don't get to use two sounds. You just get one sound and the affected version of the sound, and you morph between those. And then there's a very simple but very cool delay section over here. So what does it do? No, it's not a multi-tap delay. You can still use your prime time and your whatnots, but we started out with a pre-delay for the pitch shifter. Went like, yeah, that's cool. Then, oh, maybe we want to have the option to pre-delay the dry instead of the wet. For example, to have the reverb come before the voice, for voice from the future type sounds. And then we went like, yeah, cool, let's do that with a negative delay value. It'll delay the dry. And then we went like, wouldn't it be really cool if we did that invertedly for the left and right? So let me show you just that because that's a super easy but very effective approach. So here is just that guitar with a 5th pitch shift. Delaying the wet, standard procedure. Uh-oh. Delaying the dry. And now doing the left-right thing. It's just super wide. And the thing is, delay panners typically have the issue that whatever side plays earlier, that's where you perceive the sound to play. Like it's left or right, never in the center. With this, because there's always something playing at the same time, like either the wet or the dry, depending, you know, it doesn't do that. It's centered, but it still gets that width. You do want to watch your phase meters on that, though, you know. In combination of all of these, you get a really powerful multi-effects tool that's really great for far-out stuff. Let me put this on the guitar, for example. As well as for subtle widening, as I showed earlier. Well, yeah. In a nutshell, that's Wormhole. So just to sum that up for you, what does it do? It does monster voices, zombies, aliens, robots, intercoms, evil presidents, spaceships, laser guns, machine room rumble, that sort of stuff really easily, really quickly. It also does the Daniel Lanois, like 5th pitch shift, reverb, tail, shimmer thing really nicely, and anything in between. It's going to be VST, no, it is VST audio units, RTAS, AX native, Mac, PC, mono to stereo, stereo to stereo, 32-bit, 64-bit, VST2, VST3, and it's going to be shipping to about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks from now, and it'll be very affordable, like our Morph plugin. It's going to be $189 US. Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.